The M249 is manufactured in the United States by the subsidiary of FN Manufacturing LLC, a company in Columbia, South Carolina, and is widely used in the U.S. Armed Forces. The weapon was introduced in 1984 after being judged most effective, compared to a number of candidate weapons, to address the lack of automatic firepower in small units. The M249 provides infantry squads with a high rate of machine gun fire combined with the accuracy and portability of a rifle. The M249 is gas-operated and air-cooled. It has a quick-change barrel, allowing the gunner to rapidly replace an overheated or jammed barrel, and a folding bipod attached to the front of the weapon. An M192 LGM tripod also being available. The saw can be fed from both linked ammunition and STANAG magazines, such as those used in the M16 and M4, allowing the saw operator to use them as a source of ammunition in case they run out of belts. The STANAG magazines should only be used in emergencies due to their high malfunction rate. M249s have seen action in major conflicts involving the United States since the U.S. invasion of Panama in 1989. In 2009, the United States Marine Corps selected the M27 infantry automatic rifle to partially replace the M249 in USMC service. In 2022, the U.S. Army selected the Sig Sauer XM250 to replace the M249. Background. In 1965, the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marine Corps primary machine guns were the M2 Browning and M60. The M2 was a large caliber heavy machine gun, usually mounted on vehicles or in fixed emplacements. The M60 was a more mobile, general-purpose machine gun intended to be carried by troops to provide heavy automatic fire. Both firearms were very heavy and usually required a crew of at least two in order to operate efficiently. The Browning Automatic Rifle, BAR, the Army's main individual machine gun since its introduction in World War I, was phased out in 1957 with the introduction of the M14 rifle, which had a fully automatic mode. Designated riflemen in every squad were ordered to use their weapons on the fully automatic setting, while other troops were required to use their rifle's semi-automatic mode on most occasions to increase accuracy and conserve ammunition. Because the M14 and M16 rifles had not been designed with sustained automatic fire in mind, they often overheated or jammed. The 20-round and 30-round magazines of these weapons limited their sustained automatic effectiveness when compared to belt-fed weapons. The Army decided that an individual machine gun, lighter than the M60 but with more firepower than the M16, would be advantageous. Troops would no longer have to rely on rifles for automatic fire. Through the 1960s, the introduction of a machine gun into the infantry squad was examined in various studies. While there was a brief flirtation with the concept of a flechette, or dart-firing universal machine gun during one study, most light machine gun experiments concentrated on the Stoner 63 light machine gun, a modular weapon that could be easily modified for different purposes. The Stoner 63 LMG saw combat for a brief period in Vietnam with the Marine Corps, and later on a wider scale with the U.S. Navy SEALs. In 1968, the Army Small Arms Program developed plans for a new 5.56mm caliber LMG, though no funds were allocated. 5.56mm ammunition was viewed as underpowered by many in the armed forces. Studies of improved 5.56 ammunition with better performance characteristics began. The earliest reference to studies of other caliber cartridges for the LMG did not appear until 1969. In July 1970, the U.S. Army finally approved development of an LMG with no specified caliber. At this time, the nomenclature Squad Automatic Weapon, SAW, was introduced. Actual design of alternative cartridges for the LMG did not begin until July 1971. A month later, Frankfurt Arsenal decided on two cartridge designs for the new LMG, a 6mm cartridge and a new 5.56mm cartridge with a much larger case. Neither design was finalized by March 1972 when the Army published the specifications document for the planned SAW. The 6mm cartridge design was eventually approved in May that year. Prior to July 1972, SAW development contracts were awarded to Mermont, Philco Ford, and the Rodman Laboratory at Rock Island Arsenal. These companies produced designs with Army designations XM233, XM234, and XM235 respectively, X denoting experimental. Designs were required to have a weight of less than 9.07 kilograms, 20 pounds, including 200 rounds of ammunition, and a range of at least 800 meters, 2,600 feet. Trials. When the time came for development and operational testing of the SAW candidates, 3 5.56 candidate weapons were included with the 6mm candidates. The M16 H-bar, a heavy-barreled variant of the M16 designed for prolonged firing, the Fabrique Nationale de Herstal, FN, Mini-Me, and the HK-23A1. The initial round of tests ended in December 1974. In February 1976, the Mini-Me and Rodman XM235 SAW were selected for further development. At this time, opinions of the 6mm cartridge were beginning to sour due to the logistical implications of providing yet another ammunition type to the infantry. In June, it was requested that the SAW specifications document be revised to emphasize standard 5.56 ammunition. In October, the requested revisions were approved, and bids were solicited from the conversion of the Rodman XM235 to 5.56mm. Production of the converted XM235 was awarded to Ford Aerospace, and its designation was changed to XM248. A new M16 H-bar variant, the XM106, was developed in 1978, and soon after, Heckler & Koch lobbied to include a 5.56mm conversion of its HK-21A1 instead of the standard 7.62mm NATO ammunition it was built for, in future SAW testing. The latter model was designated the XM262. At this time, the Mini-Me received the designation XM249. Testing of the 4 candidates resumed in April 1979. In May 1980, the FN XM249 was selected as the best choice for future development on the grounds of performance and cost, while the HK XM262 reportedly came a close second. In September, FN was awarded a maturity phase contract for further development of the XM249, and testing of the new weapon began in June 1981. The official adoption took place in February 1982. Service. The new gun entered U.S. Army service as the M249 Squad automatic weapon in 1984 and was adopted by the U.S. Marine Corps a year later. The U.S. production model has a different butt from that of the regular Mini-Me. It is manufactured in the FN factory in Columbia, South Carolina. Although found to be reliable and accurate, the M249 was considered to present unacceptable hazards in the form of an exposed hot barrel and sharp edges. There were complaints from the front sight required special adjustment tools. On August 23, 1985, then U.S. Under-Secretary of the Army James R. Ambrose suspended M249 production pending the development of the Product Improvement Program, PIP, intended to fix these problems. Congress deleted funds for the M249 from the fiscal year 1986 defense budget, then retroactively set aside the program's prior year's funds from the M249 program for other purposes, including retirement and pay raises. Over 1,100 M249s already issued were to remain in use, but be retrofitted with the PIP kit when it became available. Over 7,000 remaining M249s were to stay in storage at depots until corrective changes could be made. The PIP kit was eventually developed and implemented, and production of the M249 resumed. In 1994, the M249 squad automatic weapon was redesignated the M249 light machine gun. Design details. The M249 is a belt-fed light machine gun. It fires the 5.56 by 45mm NATO cartridge, usually a combination of one M856 tracer and 4 M855 ball cartridges fed from M27 linked belts. Belts are typically held in a hard plastic or soft canvas box attached to the underside of the weapon. The M249 can also fire rifle grenades. It fires from an open bolt and is gas operated. When the trigger is pulled, the bolt and bolt carrier move forward under the power of the recoil spring. A cartridge is stripped from the belt, chambered, and discharged, sending a bullet down the bore. Expanding propellant gases are diverted through a hole in the barrel into a chamber. This pressure moves a piston, providing the energy to extract and eject the spent casings, as well as advance the belt and compress the recoil spring, thus preparing for subsequent shots. At 1,041 millimeters, 41 inches long, and 7.5 kilograms, 17 pounds in weight, 10 kilograms, 22 pounds, including a 200-round belt and plastic ammo box, the M249 is a cumbersome weapon. The M249's air-cooled barrel is equipped with a mechanism to remove and replace the barrel assembly with a spare. This makes it easy for the operator to easily change the barrel in the field when it gets too hot during extensive amounts of fire. The barrel has a rifling twist rate of 1 turn in 180 millimeters, 7 inches. A folding bipod with adjustable legs is attached near the front of the weapon, though there are provisions for hard mounting to a M192 lightweight ground mount tripod or vehicle mount. The M249's original gas regulator featured 2 different gas port sizes, normal and adverse. The normal gas setting has a cyclic rate of fire of around 700 to 850 rounds per minute, while the adverse gas setting increases the cyclic rate of fire to around 950 to 1150 rounds per minute and is only used in extreme environmental conditions or when heavy fouling is present in the gas tube. The 2-position gas regulator was discarded as part of a product improvement program, which made the M249s that received the product improvement kit no longer able to fire at the higher cyclic rate. The sustained rate of fire, the rate at which the gunner can fire continuously without overheating, is around 100 rounds per minute, whilst the rapid rate of fire is around 200 rounds per minute. Operational history. The M249 LMG entered service in 1984 as the M249 SAW. Initial reactions to the gun were mixed. It fulfilled the light machine gun role well when fired from the ground, but was not as effective when fired from the shoulder or hip. It was praised for its extreme durability and massive firepower, though a number of areas for improvement were highlighted. The blank firing attachment fitted poorly, the bipod was very weak and broke easily, the sling attachment was awkward, and there were many slots and gaps that accumulated dirt. Some claim that the heavy-barreled version of the M16 rifle was a more effective light machine gun. The M249 SAW was not used heavily before the 1991 Gulf War, though it has been used in every major U.S. conflict since. American personnel in Somalia in 1993, Bosnia in 1994, Kosovo in 1999, Afghanistan in 2001, and Iraq since 2003 have been issued M249s. Surplus weapons were donated to Bolivia, Colombia, and Tunisia. Tactically, SAWs are either carried with a maneuvering unit and fired while handheld, or positioned to remain stationary and provide covering fire for other units. Upon introduction, the basic load of ammunition was 600 rounds, carried in 3 200-round boxes. These boxes were carried in soft pouches named case, small arms, ammunition, 200-round magazine. The modern load of ammunition carried for the weapon is 1,000 rounds in 5 200-round belts, although up to 500 extra rounds generally gets loaded into 100-round soft pouches. Persian Gulf War. A supply of 929 M249 SAWs was issued to personnel from the U.S. Army and Marine Corps during the Persian Gulf War. Although exposure to combat was scarce, M249 gunners who were involved in fighting mainly used their weapons to provide cover fire for friendly maneuvering troops from fixed positions rather than maneuvering with them. There were many complaints about the weapons clogging up with sand after prolonged use in the desert environment. War in Afghanistan. The standard squad automatic weapon in Afghanistan is the M249 with PIP kit, which serves alongside its heavier counterpart, the M240 machine gun. Most M249s were given a collapsible buttstock immediately prior to the invasion to reduce its length and make the weapons more practical for parachuting and close quarters combat. Special operations troops typically favor the shorter para version of the weapon, which weighs much less. A report entitled Lessons Learned in Afghanistan was released by Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Dean and Sergeant First Class Sam Newland of the U.S. Army, Natick Soldier Center, in 2002. They found that 54% of SAW gunners had problems maintaining their weapons, and 30% reported that the gun rusted easily. Soldiers reported ammunition boxes rattling and falling off. 80% of soldiers surveyed were pleased with the weapon's accuracy and lethality, yet only 64% claimed they were confident in their weapon. Weapons clogging up with sand in the desert seems to be the main complaint. Iraq War. The PIP and para versions of the M249 have been used in the Iraq War since the invasion. By 2004, many M249s had been in service for almost 20 years and were becoming increasingly unreliable. Soldiers were requesting replacements and new features, and there are reports of soldiers holding their weapons together with duct tape. The lethality of the 5.56 ammunition has been called into question by reports of enemy soldiers still firing after being hit multiple times. As in previous conflicts, the sandy environment causes the M249s and other weapons to clog up and jam if they are not cleaned frequently. Operation Iraqi Freedom, PEO Soldier Lessons Learned, a report on the performance of weapons in the Iraq War, was published by Lieutenant Colonel Jim Smith of the U.S. Army on May 15, 2003. Smith spoke positively of the M249, claiming that it provided the requisite firepower at the squad level as intended. He praised the SPW variant, noting that its short barrel and forward pistol grip allowed for very effective use of the SAW in urban terrain. At the National Defense Industrial Association in 2007, Lieutenant Colonel Al Kelly of the 1st Battalion, 17th Infantry, gave a presentation describing the M249 as having good range, excellent reliability, and an excellent tracer. He said that a cloth pouch was preferred over the plastic box for holding linked ammunition and that knockdown power is poor but is compensated by rate of fire. Evaluation. In December 2006, the Center for Naval Analyses, CNA, released a report on U.S. small arms in combat. The CNA conducted surveys on 2,608 troops returning from combat in Iraq and Afghanistan over the past 12 months. Only troops who fired their weapons at enemy targets were allowed to participate. 341 troops were armed with SAW M249s, making up 13% of the survey. 71% of M249 users, 242 troops, reported that they were satisfied with the weapon. 40% of users preferred feeding the SAW with the soft 100-round pouch, while 21% chose the soft and hard 200-round pouches each. 60%, 205 troops, were satisfied with handling qualities such as handguards, size, and weight. Of those dissatisfied, just under half thought that it was too heavy. M249 users had the lowest levels of satisfaction with weapon maintainability at 70%, 239 troops, most due to the difficulty in removing and receiving small components and poor corrosion resistance. The SAW had the highest levels of stoppages at 30%, 102 troops, and 41% of those that experienced a stoppage said it had a large impact on their ability to clear the stoppage and re-engage their target. 65%, 222 troops, did not need their machine guns repaired while in theater. 65%, 222 troops, were confident in the M249's reliability, defined as level of soldier confidence their weapon will fire without malfunction, and 64%, 218 troops, were confident in its durability, defined as level of soldier confidence their weapon will not break or need repair. Both factors were attributed to high levels of soldiers performing their own maintenance. 60% of M249 users offered recommendations for improvements. 17% of requests were for making the weapon lighter, and another 17% were for more durable belt links and drums, as well as other modifications such as a collapsible stock.